Hang on. Let's go this. Okay, right.
The Rosicrucian movement started with these, which are manifestos. Each one of these is an individual printed manifesto in German. They date from 1690.
And this is
what started the conversation in the publication of theosophy and philosophy.
And this is the Fama Fraternitas?
No. And this is another collection of larger sized pamphlets, which are also Rosicrucian manifestos, and they include in them some fabulous plates of alchemical and astrological, and this is a Kabbalah plate.
But not the Kabbalah as we would recognise it now.
Now this series of papers and documents has no... we cannot find any copy anywhere else of what these are. So these are one-off survivors of that period in time, 1600.
Amazing.
Then, moving forward in time to 1681, this is from Westcott's library, and this is the logo of our study group. What this says is this is the general reformation of the world, and it was one of the three most famous Rosicrucian manifestos. And basically it was the story of 7 Greek philosophers who, the first one wanted to put a hole in the heart. The second one said, no, before we put holes in the heart, because they were talking to Apollo, the god, every man should have his soul washed. And another one said, well, before we have our souls washed, we ought to rid the world of women. So the next flood, let's get rid of all the women and let's find a way of reproducing without women.
What a negative man.
Which is probably why this particular manifesto failed. But this was like an EP. If you look, and I didn't find this out until much later, in this collection of bound manifestos is a copy of the Farmer. And this is exactly how it would have been. And this is, you can tell this is an original, you can see the impression that as they printed each page, that this is not some duplicate.
No, it's the original. So the gods, did they all agree on these different points, or were these just suggestions?
No, Apollo. So the three manifestos that took over, this was meant to be the A side, the Farmer, and then the Confession, which is one of these other tabs which were released. The Farmer was about the story, the story of Christian Rosicrucian's journey and inspiration. And it's really an allegorical tale. It's not true. Anyway, the Farmer was claimed to have been written by somebody called Andre, and here's one of his other books. This is his Christian Napolitan. He did claim to write this one, and this is the famous bookplate. And in the back here is another one of his books, Taurus Bubble. But these tiny little
him and his
leather
friend
books.
Tobias Hess, is that?
But here's another little treasure. This is
I love
the Chemical Wedding.
This is an amazing story, this. I've read this.
And this is a very alchemical tale, and this has been individually annotated over the years. But this is an original first edition, £20,000 book.
Oh, amazing.
What we've got here now is a collection of 5 books, all printed and published by Ashmole.
Oh,
and it's
himself.
A very rare collection to have all 5 of them together.
So this is Elias Ashmole's.
The first one is a collection called The Ordinal of Alchemy that he brought together and the most famous book in it is the Thomas Norton book on magic. And if Westcott hadn't brought this collection together, it was brought together by John Dee's son, Richard Dee, I think. Can't remember off the top of my head. And the problem with that Ashmole is he didn't give credit.
You know, John Dee's son, he lived near me in Norfolk for a while. You know.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
And this here is another one of his, and here's this famous bookplate of Ashmole's with the hidden face of Charles I, because he's dead. But this is a chemical collection. So the first thing was on magic, and this one was an alchemical collection. And he's using a pseudonym here of James Hazell, Esquire. But this is Elias Ashmole.
Yeah.
So
I like it.
He brought in a book on magic, a book on chemicals. This is a philosophy book called The Way to Bliss.
I've read The Way to Bliss. Wonderful, yeah.
And this is his work, his life's... Oh, no, this is not his life work. This is the book I like to put in every Freemason's hand. In one hand, he has a copy of The Farmer, and in another hand, he has a copy of Ashmole's diary. And here it mentions in Warrington the entry of the first making of a Freemason.
Now, wasn't this originally written in a code? Is this
it has all these hours are astrology codes, because he
I see.
did that. And the other entry is later in the book. And this was his life's work. This is the book called the Order of the Garter. Essentially, that's what it's about, the history of the Garter, and it's got all these fabulous plates of the Garter Knights. But in it, he wrote every history of all the knights that you now see in Freemasonry. So, Knights of Lazarus is not necessary, but Teutonic Knights, Knights Templar, there's a history of Knights Templar, Knights of St. Thomas. So all the knight chivalry orders, their history was written by Elias Ashmole back in here.
So it's amazing what effect he's had.
And although this isn't one of his books, it was written...
Lily,
This was William's Lily books, and this is about his life, Elias Ashmole's life, and Charles I, because Willie predicted the death of Charles I. He also predicted the Great Fire of London, which is why he was locked up. And his book's the most famous book. I've seen an original. Here is but the Christian Astrology is still the most popular astrological book in the world. It's been reprinted and reprinted and reprinted. One of our colleges up in Sheffield's got the first edition of that. But William, so here's a selection. Elias Ashmole, who everyone sort of saying, he was the first person to be made a Freemason. Yeah. He introduced to the UK some of the most amazing Rosicrucian books, and there's never been given credit for because of a lot.
That is a very important thing.
Here is another £20,000 book. It's a first edition of Thomas Vaughan's English copy of the Farmer and Confession. This was the first time that the Farmer and Confession were reproduced in English, and he used the pseudonym of Eugenus Philatenthes.
Oh, amazing! And these texts changed the world. I mean, the Catholic Church were terrified by them, and everyone decided they were Rosicrucian.
So I'm now going to sort of slip back. Yeah. Michael Mayer was a famous, and his book plates because he used.
I love these pictures. Yeah.
He couldn't find the Rosicrucian movement, so he invented it himself and started his own movement. And he came to the UK and met up with Robert Flood.
Oh.
And introduced Robert Flood into his society. And we've got the Flood jewel here. This still exists and was exhibited in 1910 in our college in London. This was this was what you can tell. This has been passed down from Robert Flood to Kenneth Dingby, and his family have kept it ever since. And there's a sort of slightly coloured version, as you would in 1910, of what it would look like blown up. When it was assayed in London in 1910, it proved to be from Germany of the period of 1640. So it should be worn by John, really, if we could ever get it back. But
so it's the original. That's the closest to the original Rosicrucian jewel. That is
the original Rosicrucian jewel. And so Paracelsus is the person who is his life story is most like Christian Rosenkreutz.
Amazing, man.
And this is just one of the most amazing books on all his different cures.
In fact, some people have described the chemical wedding as the gospel according to Paracelsus. Would you agree with that statement yourself, or perhaps not?
I don't know enough about Paracelsus. I need to read more. Another famous book, again, all part of the Rosicrucian movement. This was by Francis Bacon.
An amazing man.
And then Basil Valentine.
Yeah.
The Will and Last Testament. This has got the first reprint, although I haven't been able to find it, of the Rumbith. Which is the first ever Rosicrucian symbol, which is the egg with a man and woman coming out of it holding a square in one hand and compasses in the other. I think someone's removed that page. Can't find it in the book. It's meant to be there.
Oh, I know the one. It's Rebus. That's the one with the genders joining.
This is the book it should be in. I need a page number.
So it came from there.
Here is a very famous, very good-looking royalist. He's descended from the Palatines, so he is descended from the whole royal family, killed most of them during the 100 Years' War, but he came over here and wrote many Rosicrucian papers, John Hayden, and would have probably have written an awful lot more if he'd survived longer. I can never pronounce Michael Sandigovos properly, but he got his alchemical knowledge from a famous Scotsman called Alexander Seton, who practiced alchemy successfully and was imprisoned by the Duke of Saxony. The significance is this man wrote lots of alchemical texts, managed to get Seton out of prison just before he died, married his widow, and then seemed to have an awful lot of chemical knowledge, but never really managed to produce